Welcome to Cornell Marine Program's Digital Learning Podcast. Wow, it's 2022. It's been a while since Mr. C and I have had a podcast. Last year was a crazy year with COVID. The Marine Program was still working to protect and improve our local marine environment and educate the public through various projects. Mark and I want to take a look back at those projects that the Marine Program did in 2021. Today, I want to focus on the new sugar kelp project. But before we get into that, let's see what Mr. C is doing right now that it's 2022. Mr. C, we're back. How was your holiday season, man?
It was good, Rory. Visiting family was limited again this year, due to COVID. We did get to see family and talk to them on Zoom.
Yeah, same here. We spent a lot of time with my son and his family and did a lot of Zooming there. Hey, good news, Mr. C. I'm going to be a grandpa again.
Oh, that's great, Rory. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, we had a gender reveal party, and there's going to be another McNish boy.
You have 4 sons, right?
Yes, I do. A lot of McNish men in our family. So I thought today we would focus this podcast on some of the marine projects from last year. For example, the fish team created some great cooking recipe videos.
Yes, the fishing staff, was also very active with many social media posts this past year.
And the SPAT program continued to teach people about oyster aquaculture, and I'm still enjoying eating my oysters when they're ready for harvest.
Sure, we can get into that. But before we do, what are you drinking, Rory?
Oh, this?
Yeah, that.
This is my special juice that keeps me going in the morning.
That color looks like some green slime I made in high school chemistry class.
Yeah, it does have an interesting color, doesn't it? It's reminiscent of the old Nickelodeon slime.
Does it have kelp in it?
No, but that's not a bad addition for my secret recipe. Now, speaking of kelp, that's the topic I wanted to highlight today. I have a great video clip about an exciting new kelp project here on Long Island. Sugar kelp has been an emerging specialty crop in the past few years across the Northeast and now on Long Island. This crop has enormous potential in local seafood markets, and its potential also includes other uses such as fertilizer, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and it also cleans the water, removing excess nutrients and carbon dioxide. The Moore family has taken notice of that potential and created a not-for-profit called Lazy Point Farms to provide structural, educational, and logistical support needed to advance the future of sugar kelp farming on Long Island.
This was a project that Cornell was involved, and I specifically was involved in advising for New York State DEC. And during the harvest portion of that project of the sugar kelp that had been grown 2 years ago, the Moores came out and were given some of the samples kelp harvested to try their hand at processing and just being able to work with the kelp to figure out the best way that it could be used in a commercial setting. From that, the Moores knew my involvement and my expertise with seaweed and with the kelp aquaculture, so they reached out to Cornell and we began a partnership. The Moore Family Charitable Foundation is the funding agent, but Lazy Point Farms is an offshoot that was specifically created to manage this new project.
So Lazy Point Farms is basically one of the projects as part of the nonprofit that we started. And when we first got involved in the sort of kelp project, we were really focused on the Peconic because it seemed like a lot of potential for the future for where kelp can be grown right around the Lazy Point area. But as we started to learn, we have seen that there's a lot of different areas around Long Island. And so Lazy Point Farms is now just focused on, helping to build up the kelp industry across Long Island. And that's, the cultivation, creating seed schools to help, to get the farmers so they can locally source the seeds. There's, many different growers we support, on the North Shore as well as the South Shore of Long Island, not just in the Peconic Bay and Lazy Point area. And we've seen in other areas that this can be a self-sustaining industry.
Kelp to me is one of the coolest things you can possibly grow. It's from the minute you start to grow it, it's already giving back to everything that's around it. It takes in excess nutrients. It's providing a habitat for local sea life around it, improves water quality, all these things. And as it grows and grows, it's, taking in carbon, it's doing all these amazing things, and then you harvest it and there's so many different things you can do with it. It's incredibly versatile and it doesn't even ask for anything in return.
Having worked with kelp aquaculture before, Cornell back in 2016, 2017 had completed a sugar kelp feasibility study in the Peconic estuary. So we've had experience with deploying kelp and dealing with kelp seed strings. I was also familiar with the process of actually setting up nurseries, and I was brought on board to not only act as an advisor and to actually produce some seed strings for the project, but also to train what is now the first commercial kelp nursery operation in New York State with the Hart Lobster hatchery.
We started looking into kelp about 3 years ago to start growing as a renewable resource. We needed a winter project for the shop. And then Wendy reached out to us to start growing as a nursery so that we could grow the spores for use by all the farmers. And then we've remained in constant contact to make sure that we have a successful year last year and then as a continuing project for future years. So my role in the project is to help release the spores and get them set onto the spools that have all the string on it that then gets laid out. And then we also run a line in our basin to grow the kelp over winter.
It's not something that we necessarily looked for. It kind of came to us. The notion of growing kelp in the Northeast and its apparent success in further northeast off of Maine and so on in the cooler waters, the deeper waters, was very intriguing. And when we had an opportunity to have or to at least participate in a kelp pilot project, we jumped at it, thinking that would be a great way to, kind of expand our operations, maximize and diversify our acreage out there. And it's also a winter product. So when the oyster harvest and clam harvest is, at least when the market is down, and the maintenance is kind of at a low point as well for the year, to have kelp keep us active, it sounds like a very reasonable thing to at least look into.
The people I worked with, really professional, really interested and invested in doing a good job, producing a good product, even though it was something that they're used to growing shellfish. This is kind of outside their wheelhouse, but they really took to it. And a lot of the growers, they came, there was a solicitation for people to be involved in the project, but a lot of these growers came to Lazy Point Farms and really requested to be part of the project and have requested to be part of any future projects with it as well. So I just think the enthusiasm around the project, everybody has a real vested interest in making seaweed aquaculture work in New York.
So stay tuned tomorrow. We're going to highlight another project from last year. I think the Bay Scallop survey would be a great topic.
Yes, people are wondering what's going on, with the bay scallops. The last 2 years, the adults, they've been dying during the summer, before the harvest. Yeah,
scalloping was a really important fishery on the east end of Long Island. Many people made extra money going out to harvest scallops, and the local baymen counted on the scallop harvest for income during the winter. We'll have more on that in our next installment in This Year in Review.
Okay, Rory, see you tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow, Mr. C.